Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another of these very cool Lulu's Customs and Classics figures. This time, we've got another Spinosaurus. Yes, would you believe that? We already had taken a look at the mutant Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 4. We now have and of course it's Jurassic Park 4, like the very first script that they had come up with, where they had kind of like mutant kaiju type dinosaurs. We now have more of like your classic sort of interpretation of a Jurassic Park Spinosaurus, but again, Lulu's Customs and Classics has kind of taken their own inspiration when it comes to the coloration and paint scheme of this one, and just applied his very own version of color for it. But it is another very, very nice looking interpretation of a Spinosaurus, and again, with its very own unique coloration to it. So as always, let's jump straight to a closer look and we'll check it out from there. So, beginning up here at the head sculpt of our Spinosaurus, you can see that head sculpt is actually really quite nicely done and definitely very closely replicates the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. Now, as we move into this figure, you may notice some strong similarities between this and the mutant Spinosaurus that we had taken a look at, and that is because I believe he had originally sculpted out the mutant version and then went and kind of altered that sculpt to give us the more, Jurassic Park 3 version. So there are a lot of different areas on this figure that are pretty much the same, but then of course it's been retooled into the more Jurassic Park 3 version. One thing though that is definitely different but kind of similar would be the coloration. You can see the coloration absolutely resembles a Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus with some differences to it. Again, there's a good bit more white to the face on this one. You've got more reds and stuff down here on the lower jaw. You can see the eye is very nicely painted. We have a darker tone there around the eye, a nice greenish tone for the eye itself with a black slit-like pupil, as well as a nice gloss coat. You can see the nostrils have been highlighted with a darker tone. You can kind of see the figure as I kind of turn it and let the light hit it. You can get a good idea of what the scale, detail, and skin texture looks like. Just like with the mutant version, you can see the mouth is sculpted in an open position. We have the teeth sculpted in there, all of the teeth sculpted individually, and then there's also a kind of a pinkish tone in there for the inside of the mouth as well. And oh, I almost dropped it, but you can see the tongue as well for the inside of the mouth. And if you want an idea as far as looking at this and seeing how different it is from the mutant version, you can also see it's smaller. The mutant version is a bit larger, but you can definitely see, again, very strong similarities between the two. It almost makes me feel like this was the original version of the Spinosaurus and it's somehow mutated into this version because they look so similar. As far as the coloration goes, you could just kind of see how it is different, but very similar at the same time. But as you move back here into the neck, you can see some creasing as you move down the course of the neck. You have some folds and stuff down here. You also have some more of the white that leads out, very reminiscent to the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, but again, a much brighter white than what you would see on the actual JP3 version. Moving down into the body, you again see the different scale, detail, and skin texture here in the stomach, and you can also see all the variation of color, very, again, reminiscent to what we saw on the mutant version of the Spinosaurus. And this kind of zigzag pattern is also very reminiscent. If I bring up the mutant version, you can see it's just a lot more exaggerated now on that version compared to his original, well, not his original, but like the original version of the Spinosaurus that he has created. And you can see the sail as well, again, has a nice look to it, a little bit different, especially as far as like the texturing and the appearance to it compared to what we saw on the mutant version. It also doesn't have the spikes leading off of the back of the sail. The arms are pretty similar. I think they're, for the most part, pretty similar as far as like the positioning goes. Let me go ahead and turn it so that they are facing the same direction. Yeah, they look pretty close to the same, except there are a lot more when it comes to like obvious scoots on the fingers of the mutant version compared to what we have on this version. You can see the nails are nice and sharp looking, though they are also again painted with a nice glossy black. The muscle definition and everything is still there. You can see some lighter variations of like tans and stuff have been applied to the figure as you move through. The legs, sculpt-wise, appear to be exactly the same as what we had seen on the mutant version. You have the scoots down the toes and everything as well. Again, for the most part, it feels like they are the same. I don't really notice too much of any major differences on this version of the legs compared to the other one. I don't think he's really altered anything there. And then as you lead out, you can again see the tail, which also looks pretty similar overall. We also again have that white leading out here striping out into the tail. Again, quite a bit of variation of color like you usually see. I feel like he's very good at adding a lot of different variations of color to his figures. And you can see, again, looks pretty much the same over here, except for the fact that the leg is leading as opposed to trailing, which again is the same thing that we had seen on the mutant version, which, like I said, it shares a lot of the same parts too. But definitely a really cool version of a Spinosaurus. Again, Lulu continues to hammer out some awesome figures. And just like with the mutant version, it stands very nicely, no balancing issues at all for my Spinosaurus. For a size lengthwise from the snout to the tail, about 9 3/4 inches or around 24.5, maybe just under 25 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point is definitely the sail. You are looking at a little over 3 3/4 inches or just shy of about 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Spinosaurus from Lulu's Customs and Classics. And again, like I've said numerous times, this figure is an early version, so it's a little bit smaller than you're probably going to see for the actual release. I think the actual release will be a bit larger in size. So this isn't exactly the size of the version you would get. The actual release will be a bit larger, but one comparison that I think should show you a pretty good idea of the size is the mutant Spinosaurus next to this version. This gives you a very good idea, at the very least, of how these two will size up next to each other, showing you that the mutant version will definitely be a bit larger than what you see for the standard version. Not a whole lot bigger, but definitely a little bit larger. I guess as the dinosaur mutated, it definitely increased in size a bit as well. So I don't feel like we really need to do too many comparisons this time around, just because, again, the size on this isn't absolutely final, so the version that you actually would get may be a bit different. And of course, you would have to follow Lulu's Customs and Classics on eBay, and then when they actually list the figure, you'll have an idea as far as what the size would be then. But again, it is a very cool figure, and to see these two next to each other honestly just looks so epic. So again, Lulu's Customs and Classics has given us yet another very cool figure. Again, I just love how good at not only sculpting his dinosaurs he is, but also at coming up with unique color schemes. Like, I just love the fact that he's very clearly taken the inspiration for the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, given it the look of that dinosaur for sure, but the color scheme as well, but switched it up to his own personal preference. And you know, I sometimes will just sit here forever when I'm trying to come up with a color scheme for my figures. It doesn't seem like he has that problem. Like, he's just always got very cool color schemes in mind, and they just like are consistently popping into his head, because he's done a really good job of taking that JP3 Spino look and altering it in, again, a way that just looks different but the same. It's weird. It's hard to really put into words the way that he's done this, but it is very cool. And of course, as you move through the course of the figure, it definitely resembles the JP3 Spino quite nicely, I think. He's, absolutely captured the general likeness to the dinosaur, as well as kind of a bit of a menacing look for the dinosaur, like we see in the film quite a bit. So I do quite like that as well. And the fact that he has given us both the standard version as well as the mutant version is really cool. If you are a Jurassic fan, I feel like having both is definitely a great addition to any collection, because it almost shows you how the dinosaur evolved or mutated, I guess you could say, from one version to another. So if you are interested, like always, make sure you check the links that I will include in the description. Make sure you are following Lulu's Customs and Classics on eBay. As I mentioned, he doesn't quite have the Spino up for sale yet, or at least I don't think he does, unless he popped some up when I wasn't looking. But he does have a few other figures. You know, he's got some Scorpius Rex, I believe, as well as some Ultimasaurus figures on his eBay shop for sale. So if you are interested in any of those, of course, check the links in the description, and in general, follow him on there so that you can stay up to date on everything that he lists for sale. And of course, snag yourself some of these Spinos when they go up as well. And like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.